Okay. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all of your magnificent gifts. We ask for your presence and guidance tonight as our city council convenes to do the work of our community. Today's world is fraught with crime, dishonesty, selfishness, and lack of faith, whipped into a frenzy by political extremists and by media to serve dubious agendas. Even our respectful community feels the pressures of discontent, uncertainty, and fear engendered by those who serve dark masters. As we work together this evening, let us remember that unity and respect for one another will set a standard for the community we jointly serve. We are all diminished by that which injures any one of us. Help us to make sound decisions that benefit all of our citizens, promoting harmony, happiness, and safety for all who call Belvedere home. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen. Well, we have a crowd tonight, everybody, and so please bear with us as we try to make sure that everybody who wants their voice heard will have their voice heard. For public comment, first up this evening, we have Dr. Christina Warden. Dr. Warden here, or are you on the phone?
No, you're just reading the...
Oh, I'm just going to read this one. Okay, perfect. Good morning, or evening as it is. My name is Dr. Christina Warden, and I am a therapist at KP Counseling in Rockford, Illinois. Our practice serves many clients in the Boone County and surrounding area. This email is being written on behalf of the COSAP grant and the ultimate benefit it would bring to our community. As suicide rates, hospitalizations, treatment center admissions, and cases of depression and anxiety are on the rise, individuals, couples, and families have sought our services related to, but not limited to, at-risk youth problems and concerns, substance abuse, domestic violence, major mental health issues like depression, anxiety, panic disorder, and suicidal ideation. I believe that in these specific situations, a police officer who is focused on follow-up for both care and consideration, as well as to act as additional resource to connect them to the services that would benefit them best, is paramount to the success, health, mental health, and well-being of a person. Police officers then have the ability to enhance their compassionate and empathetic image and assist individuals, couples, and families in need right away. Most often in these situations, individuals, couples, and families must wait on a waiting list for services and or they never follow up due to poor planning and less motivation as time passes. Police officers have the privilege of expediting the process to further enhance a person's ability to receive immediate care and resource referral. I implore you to consider removing the COSAP grant from the table today and vote yes so that the citizens of Boone County can start receiving these instrumental services. Thank you, Christina. Then I have our newly Alderman-elect, Cheryl Prather, who would like to make comment. Cheryl, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm a member of the Executive Board of Directors for Boone County CASA. I also served as a volunteer advocate with this program. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with our organization, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. We are a nonprofit that trains volunteers from our community to advocate for children in foster care in our court system due to abuse or neglect. CASAs are the voice of the child in court and aid the judge in determining what is in the best interest of the child for long-term placement. Currently, we are serving 74 children brought into our court system by DCFS. Of these children, over 72% were brought in due to substance abuse, domestic violence, and/or mental health concerns. This does not include the families that were brought in because of physical or sexual abuse directly to the child, which would bring that number to 95%. 61% of our current cases originated in the city of Belvedere. As you can see, these issues are some of the main contributing factors for abuse and neglect. A child is only removed from a home and placed in appropriate foster care when there's sufficient evidence of abuse or neglect. The court would, at that time, appoint a CASA to the ward as a guardian ad litem in lieu of paying a private attorney to do the same thing. If a CASA is not available, an attorney would be appointed. It is estimated that last year our program saved Boone County taxpayers a conservative estimate of $625,000 by serving a total of 78 children as volunteer advocates. Just based on this figure alone, you can get an understanding of how these issues affect our court system and our taxpayers. I would like to point out that it is only March 1st, and we are serving 74 children. And we are almost already at the total of 78 that we served last year. The goal of DCFS is to return a child to their home unless, after due process, it is determined that it is not in the best interest of the child for long-term placement. DCFS works with the parents by providing support services such as parenting classes or connecting them with services such as drug treatment programs. By helping to correct and break the cycle of dysfunction that led to DCFS involvement in the first place, the hope is that the child can return safely home. This can be a lengthy process, and it's also very traumatizing on the families and especially the children. Imagine being a 4-year-old child, and one night there is a knock at your door. A few minutes later, you are being taken away from the only family that you have ever known and placed, if no other appropriate family member is available, you are placed with total strangers, sometimes in a separate home from your siblings, and for the next 18 months to 2 years, you might be placed in 3 different foster homes, change daycares, change preschools, and often change DCFS caseworkers multiple times. This is a reality of the trauma that these children experience while their parents are navigating the system. We at CASA hope that someday the need for our organization doesn't even exist. An early intervention program that identifies at-risk families and provides support in navigating services and aid could potentially decrease the occurrences of abuse and neglect before it escalates to the point that requires DCFS involvement. In addition, families that are brought into our court system could greatly benefit from additional support and potentially reduce the amount of time that a child lingers in foster care. The potential for this early intervention exists with the passing of the resolution involving the COSEP grant that many of the members of this city council voted to table. It is my hope that you will see the humanity of the children involved by no fault of their own and understand the opportunity you have before you to change lives. They are innocent and brought into dysfunctional situations that many are destined to repeat unless we interrupt the cycles. So on behalf of the children of the city of Belvedere and Boone County who are experiencing abuse and neglect due to drug abuse, domestic violence, and mental illness, will you give them the help they need? Please do the responsible and humane thing and take this resolution off the table and pass it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have people on the phone, and we have people in the audience. Would any of the people in the audience or on the phone like to make public comment now, or wait to see if indeed we take this off the table and participate in a discussion at that time? I'll throw it out there to who wants to do what. So I'm going to guess that we're going to wait and see if it gets taken off the table and have a discussion with those people in the audience and on the phone. So next up, we have approval of minutes. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of the Belvedere City Council of February 15th, 2021 is presented, I will entertain a motion to approve these minutes. Motion by Alderman Fleury. May I have a second, please?
Second that.
Okay, I have a second by Alderman Porter, third by Alderman Rivolo. All those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Okay, the minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Under public hearing this evening, we have none. Under special messages and proclamations, I have a few. First of all, I wanted to share with you appointment that I have made to the Fire Pension Board, Mr. Jack Barnes and Ms. Terry Faust. Secondly, I would like to offer congratulations to our city clerk, who has been reelected for another 4-year term, and to Cheryl, who has been elected as alderman in Ward 3. Also to Natalie Mulhall, who survived the coin flip and was elected in the preliminary election for her ward and will face a challenge in the general election. Next up is approval of expenditures, and we have none this evening. Under committee reports and minutes of city officers, we have minutes of the Committee of the Whole, Public Safety, Finance, and Personnel of February 22nd, 2021. As presented, I'll entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Arivalo. Second? Second by Porter. Questions, comments, or proposed amendments to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. Under number 9, unfinished business. First up tonight is the Resolution 2021. It is the COSAP grant, which is on the table. Is anyone desirous of
I'd like to
removing
make that
from the
motion.
table? I have a motion by Rivolo. May I have a second, please? Second by Fleury. Okay, it's now off the table. I know. May I have all those in favor of the motion to take it off the table, which we now have, will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton, Brereton,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Okay, the motion is taken off the table successfully. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2021-3, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement excuse me, with Boone County for the provision of a community law enforcement officer pursuant to the COSAP grant. May we have a motion and second first, please, Alderman? I have a motion by Snow. May I have a second?
I'll sit.
Second by Fleury. Questions or comments? Alderman Frank.
Well, I'd first like to say that I was pretty shocked that we were shamed, or I'm shamed, because I tabled this. I had a lot of questions, and I thought they were good questions. I asked Chief Woody. I talked to Dave Ernest today. I've talked to Drella. I've asked a lot of questions, and so to be shamed that I tabled it is wrong.
Well, who shamed you? I don't follow what you're talking about. Who shamed you? Who shamed you?
Well, I would say, first off, it would be Cheryl Prather.
And how did she shame you?
I'm just making a public comment that it's uncalled for, that I asked very good questions, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor?
I have some questions.
Just a moment, please. The Chief of Police would like to make a comment. Chief Woody, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to thank the grant partners and supporters who are in the attendance or on the phone this evening to help answer any questions that you may have. Boone County Public Health Administrator Amanda Mail, Boone County Sheriff Dave Ernest, State's Attorney Tricia Smith, Boone County Probation Deputy Director Amy Gallineau, the Honorable Judge Tobin, Joan Lodge, licensed clinical social worker, adult mental health services for Rosecrans, and Danielle Bywalt, adult advocate for Remedies. Alderman, in addition to the information in your packet, I'd like to address some of the questions that you already brought up at previous meetings or through conversations that I've had over the course of the last 2 weeks. One of the questions that seems to keep getting asked is why should the Belvedere Police Department participate in this grant rather than the Boone County Sheriff's Department? I explained previously when my department had the opportunity to participate in this grant, I thought it complemented what we are already trying to do with our community outreach. This grant would give your police department the opportunity to expand beyond traditional community policing into proactive, problem-oriented community policing in an attempt to mitigate overdoses and overdose deaths, contributed to heroin and other controlled substances. When I researched the community impact of these identified problems, I discovered that over the last 5 years, the city of Belvedere bore the weight of these problems. For example, as far as overdoses for the Belvedere Police Department, we responded to 107 calls for service where someone was overdosing. 56 of those calls were attributed to heroin alone. In contrast, Boone County, where over the same period of time, the Sheriff's Department responded to 28 calls for service where someone was overdosing, and 9 of those calls were for heroin-related calls for service. The Belvedere Police Department's annual report showed over a 300% increase in heroin overdoses and 50% increase in drug overdoses since 2017. When the grant partners began putting this together, the information for the grant, we identified a potential shortfall of substance abuse cases to justify a full-time community law enforcement officer. So as we looked at other gaps in services for our community, we identified domestic violence incidents and mental health services that would also benefit from the community law enforcement officer. The community law enforcement officer would provide guidance and assistance to individuals or families of domestic violence on how to go about obtaining the services and resources that are already available. Too many people don't get the help they need because the system can seem intimidating and too complex to navigate. Over the last 5 years, the Belvedere Police Department has responded to 8,640 calls for service for reports of domestic violence. Your police department responds to an average of 1,700 domestic violence calls for service every year. The community law enforcement officer would also be responsible for reaching out to those in our community who have been identified by patrol and other program partners as needing mental health services, and work with those partners in the community who specialize in providing the services and resources these clients may need. The community law enforcement officer would also work with the families of these clients to better understand what the needs of these clients are and to communicate that information to law enforcement to better mitigate future encounters. Over the last 5 years, the Belvedere Police Department has responded to 437 calls for service relating to individuals suffering from some form of mental health issue, up to and including suicide. The community law enforcement officer would be responsible for proactively going through calls for service from previous shifts or fielding referrals from fellow officers or deputies in an attempt to reach out to these individuals or families trapped in the controlled substance abuse cycle, domestic violence loop, or suffering from mental health disorders. The community law enforcement officer would work with social workers and counselors during the hours that most services and resources would be available to provide to the clients who need them most. Some of you have expressed a concern over what it would cost to the city to approve this grant. As you can see by the budget contained in your packets, the grant covers the cost of an officer's salary and benefits, vehicle, office supplies, cell phone, business cards, I know Wendy will be happy about that, and yearly training including lodging, meals, and airfare. Uniforms will be covered through the officer's uniform allowance already allocated to each officer through the collective bargaining agreement. There may be a need for the community law enforcement officer to work after hours that currently would require compensation to that officer. This expenditure can be mitigated and is not something that I would anticipate to be very common and would be a very small cost to the city. It would be mitigated as I do with the rest of the department's overtime budget. I'm not asking for an increase in my overtime budget to accommodate this expenditure. There's also been some concern expressed that a police officer would not be appropriate because the types of people we are trying to reach out to would not feel comfortable working with the police officer because their prior encounters were in an enforcement capacity. To some extent, that may initially be true, assuming that all of those encounters end up negatively. Our officers have had many positive encounters, even when enforcement action is taken. However, policing is changing, and communities are expecting departments to break free from traditional policing and become more engaged with their communities. This is a perfect opportunity for the Belvedere Police Department to show our community that we keep their community safe in many different ways. Plus, how are we expected to change the stereotype of policing if the stereotype is used to keep us from trying new things? I know several of you have had expressed the need for additional information to include statistics. So I found a study done by the state of Illinois in 2017 regarding the state's opioid action plan. The plan states as follows. Drug overdoses have now become the leading cause of death nationwide of people under the age of 50. In Illinois, opioid overdoses have killed nearly 11,000 people since 2008. The opioid epidemic is the most significant public health and public safety crisis facing Illinois. The causes of the epidemic are complex, and state government must work with everyone: healthcare providers, local agencies, law enforcement, community groups, individual citizens, and national partners toward a solution. August 2017, provisional data from the Illinois Department of Public Health show a 48.8% increase in all drug overdose deaths and a 76.2% increase in opioid overdose deaths from 2013 to 2016. Opioids were a contributing factor in 68% of drug overdose deaths in 2013 and 80% of drug overdose deaths in 2016. The number of heroin deaths has nearly doubled since 2013. There were 583 heroin-related deaths in 2013 and over 1,000 deaths in 2016. The number of opioid analgesic deaths has almost quadrupled. There were 344 opioid analgesic deaths in 2013 and over 1,200 deaths in 2016. Opioid analgesics encompass prescription opioids, including natural and semi-synthetic opioid analgesics such as morphine, codeine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, and oxymorphone. In 2015, 276,000 adolescents in the U.S. were current non-medical users of opioids, with 122,000 reporting an addiction to prescription opioids. An estimated 21,000 adolescents had used heroin in the past year, and an estimated 5,000 were current heroin users. Approximately 88,000 Illinois adolescents per year in 2013 and 14 reported using illicit drugs, including heroin, in the past year. And 40,000 teens per year reported non-medical use of prescription opioids. 4 evaluations of law enforcement assisted diversion, which is very similar to what we're attempting to do here in Boone County, has shown positive initial results. Research found statistically significant differences in recidivism between law enforcement assisted diversion participants and a comparison group. Law enforcement assisted diversion participants had 60% lower likelihood of arrest at 6 months than a comparison group. After 4 years, law enforcement assisted diversion participants were 58% less likely to be arrested compared to the control group. On average, participants had 1.4 fewer jail bookings per year, spent 39 fewer days in jail per year, and had 87% lower odds of at least one period of incarceration after entry into the program. The Opioid Action Plan sums it up by stating, the opioid epidemic is as much a public safety issue as a public health issue. It would be my intention as chief to assign a specific officer to identify clients who may be at risk of overdose, substance abuse, domestic violence, or mental health issues simply by having routine contact through day-to-day interactions, and then work with the grant partners to identify which resources are available and which services are appropriate. Being able to make timely referrals to resources and services can allow a client to disrupt these cycles, which can result in lower crime rates, limit victimization, and reduce recidivism. I truly believe this is a great opportunity for our department, but more importantly, for our community. The program partners and I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions? Comments? Alderman Frank, please proceed. And then Alderman Freeman's on the phone. She wanted to make a comment, so after Alderman Frank.
I talked to Dave Ernest today, and he did clear up a couple of questions I had, but the office would be at the police department, not at the health department?
That's correct.
Alderman Freeman, you had a comment. You have the floor. Please proceed.
Thank you. I have several things actually for probably multiple people. My first one I think would be for Becky. So in our budget that we just did for the general fund, on page 38 of 51 of our revenues, it is the school resource officer reimbursement, and our budget says $97,812. Underneath, it says this is the reimbursement from the Belvedere School District for the school resource officer, and the city receives 70% of the salary and benefits of the average cost for a police officer. So I'm assuming the $97,812 is 70% of the salary and benefits of an average police officer, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So an average salary and benefits for a police officer, 70% of 140,000 is roughly 98,000, which is what we recoup from the school district. So therefore that equates to the average cost of salary and benefits for a police officer is $140,000 a year. this grant is only covering $94,077, which, I mean, simple math can tell you that that's $46,000 less than the average cost of an officer. So we're already $46,000 in the hole here. Chief Woody has requested 4 new vehicles at a projected cost of $172,500. So if you take that number and divide it by 4, that is roughly $43,000 for a new squad. So the $46,000 that we're down potentially buys a squad car. I'm looking at this as things might look good on paper, but if you start to peel back the layers, it starts getting costly. It's my understanding that the $94,000 not only covers the salary and benefits, but is supposed to also cover leasing a car and uniforms and any overtime that the officer would probably have to do, being how I'm assuming most domestic violence and substance abuse calls come in on nights and weekends. So I'm concerned about that. I've also marked that I can't find it. So that was my question for Becky. Financially, when you peel back the layer, this is going to cost the city taxpayers. I don't know if Amanda Meal is on the line or if she's available to answer a question.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, good evening. This is Amanda Mail from the Boone County Health Department.
Hi, thank you, Amanda. So my question for you is, does this COSAP grant money have to be partnered with an officer, or could this $94,077 be used for your department to maybe partner with a drug addiction, substance abuse, mental health professional counselor that could serve at the Boone County Health Department?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd be happy to address that. So there's a couple things happening. Back in May of 2020, when the Boone County Behavioral Health Task Force worked together to write this second Department of Justice grant, there were 2 major components that were not part of the first grant, the core grant that we've now had for about a year and a half, that we wanted to add to our service delivery model so that our systems-based approach in Boone County could become as comprehensive as possible. And one of those is having a community law enforcement officer. That's a huge component based on evidence and based on a lot of the data that Chief Woody just presented. The other piece of it is what you just made mention of. So our partners that we have with Rosecrans are also proposed subcontractors in this grant agreement, and they will be bringing on a full-time individual to provide a lot of the services that you just made mention of. So there are 2 pieces of this that are really critical to the overall development of the structural model that we want to implement in Boone County. One is the officer, and then one is the actual mental health and addictions counselor. So Rosecrans is moving forward with their hiring process. They're moving forward with their activities preparing to execute their subcontract. I know we have several of our Rosecrans partners available to also answer questions, but both of those pieces work hand in hand to add on to what we have already put together and what is already up and running with our core grant since 2019.
If it's all right.
Okay, so I guess,
Marcia, if it's all right,
yeah,
could you allow Becky to answer your initial question before we get too far afield? Becky and the chief to talk about the actual funding and what it's going to be spent for.
Well,
absolutely.
I need to double check. I don't have my budget in front of me right now, the new one, but I believe what was put into the grant was, that was the cost of a new officer, not the average of an officer, I think is what's in the grant.
Chief, do you have anything to add?
Because we already have it budgeted for the current officer in our budget. I'll have to look.
Can't say specifically.
Okay.
Okay, but a
Like the
new
comment,
officer is
yeah.
only in the probationary period for 12 months, and then, you know, he goes up to average officer pay. So maybe for the first year, we might be getting a break, but after that, we would be in the red. Okay, so
Hey, Alderman Freeman?
I have.
Chief is speaking.
I don't know who's on the line, but
Hey, Alderman Freeman?
it's my opinion that an officer, you know, knocking on doors would not be as effective as a trained professional drug addiction, substance abuse, mental health professional, counselor, advocate would be. And I just feel like a $94,000 a year full-time person that had, you know, direct contact, communication with the public safety building that could go out and talk to people because that's what they're trained to do, would have a much better reception with the types of people that we're trying to help. I mean, no one is denying a need for an outreach program here in Boone County. The numbers speak for themselves. I just am not sold on an officer being the best person for that job, and I'd like to point out that as elected representatives, it is our job to protect the taxpayers from undue financial burdens and ensure that these grant funds are being utilized to best serve our community, and we do so with only the best intentions.
Becky?
So those were my questions and my comments, and that's all I have at this time.
Alderman Freeman, in response to the vehicle and all of those ancillary expenses, those are all covered in the grant aside from the $94,000, which covers the salary and benefits of the officer. The vehicle is leased, and that's an additional expenditure, office supplies. All of those expenses were added into the budget above and beyond the $94,000. In terms of an officer being appropriate for this particular program, one of the goals of the program is to have somebody that is going to be familiar with the potential client base. And the Behavioral Health Task Force identified law enforcement as being the ones that are going to have the most contact with these at-risk individuals, and that's why they identified a missing component being law enforcement. And that's going to be part of our role, is helping identify these people that need the services. I mean, yeah, we do. We contact these people in one form or fashion. I mean, you heard it, just domestics alone, 1,700 times a year. And that's just if, you know, it's just one person. I mean, usually we're dealing with families. And that's just isolating domestics. That's not including all of the other responsibilities that we would task the CLEO to have. You know, and it's, in addition to that, you know, the community law enforcement officer is going to be working hand in hand with Rosecrans, with the social workers that are already committed to this program to help bridge the gaps that are there. I mean, they have some of these people in place already, and then have identified law enforcement as being a missing piece to that puzzle.
Okay, Alderman Frank?
I don't know who I would ask these questions to, but it's about the budget detail. This is new in our packet today, or over the weekend. So would that be Amanda, or would that be you? I know Dave Ernest helped me, and Matthew Wallace helped too. I just had some questions about how it jumps up from year 1 to year 2.
I can try it, Amanda, and if I get stuck, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, no problem, Chief. Sounds good.
Well, I have a specific question for the Boone County Jail nurse on the first year. she's working 78 hours, and then the next year she jumps up to 312 hours. I wonder if you could explain that?
Yeah, that's all you, Amanda.
Sure, no problem. So for the first year of the grant, this is on the federal fiscal year cycle, which is October 1st of every year to September 30th of the subsequent year. So we're currently in a 9-month planning period, which started on October 1st of 2020. So during the 9-month planning period, during the first fiscal year, there's nothing charged to the grant. So the first year for salaries, wages, and benefits, you will see the prorated amounts with the intention of individuals being hired and or beginning to charge time between the months of April and August, depending on how far along they are in their planning process, which feeds up into the overall systematic planning process. So that's why you see a difference between year 1 and then subsequent year 2 and 3, not only for the jail nurse, but also for the CLEO and the staff member, the full-time staff member from Rose Grant.
Okay, and Amanda, while I still have you on the phone, could you also, you can guarantee that all these costs are going to be covered by the grant?
The costs that are listed on the line items in the budget detail, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, your trip to
Yes.
Washington DC, the training, the supplies, everything in these first 4 years.
Yes, so the budget has been reviewed and the conditions were removed by the Department of Justice. And I have actually submitted our first quarterly report discussing our planning process at this time, sort of how the task force has gone about their planning. So at this time, everything included in that budget has been approved and conditions have been removed by the Department of Justice.
Okay, and then could you also tell me what other municipalities have tried this COSAP grant and with what success?
So there are program models all across the country. There are a handful in the state of Illinois and across the nation. The CLEO model is not going to be anything new. We're not reinventing the wheel or creating something from scratch. We're actually modeling it after counties of similar size and scope and demographic that have successfully executed programs. We are the recipients, in addition to this grant and our previous Department of Justice core grant, of a mentorship technical assistance program with Butler County. And Butler County has been providing some mentorship to us and giving us some advice and tips on how to move forward with an evidence-based program such as this. So we're actually under the guidance and leadership of another county of similar size and scope that's going to kind of help us through this process. But there are models all across the country of programs like this with the mental health component, the law enforcement component, and then the overall systematic approach being driven by a task force similar to the one that we formed 4 years ago that are working very well, reducing recidivism rates by 60 to 70% across the nation.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have Alderman Snow and then Alderman Fleury. Alderman Snow, you have the floor.
So when it comes to the leased car, is that going to be a regular patrol car that gets leased or just a car that will not?
It'll be an unmarked car that the health department leases.
Thank you.
Alderman Fleury, please proceed.
How long has the task force been working together to make this recommendation to select a police officer?
Amanda, would you like to take that?
As far as how long has the task force been in existence?
Right. We understand that there was a problem with the opioid problem in Belvedere and Boone County, and then I know the task force was formed. So how long was the task force working together? And then ultimately, what multiple agencies making this decision that a police officer would be the best fit for this program?
Sure. So the task force has been in existence since 2017, and we started our process by going through a 1.5-year sequential intercept map model tool that was guided by the Region 1 Planning Council. It took us a 1.5 years to go through the entire process to assess all of the county and municipal departments, all of the social service and mental health and healthcare agencies, faith-based organizations in the community that were in existence, services that did exist. once we went through the entire process of mapping out the community and what services are available, we did a detailed gaps analysis. And in December of 2018, we did publish, using Region 1 Planning Council assistance, a final report. That is a report that I did come to previous city council meetings and present to all of you on a number of occasions, our findings, some of the gaps that we had identified, and then our plans to move forward with grant writing. I know that this city council also was generous enough to approve $10,000 worth of grant writing expenses, of which we were able to successfully write multiple grants, and we've now successfully received 2 grants totaling over $1 million for our community in the next 3 to 5 years. So that's really been sort of the trajectory of the task force. There's about 30 individuals from a variety of different sectors that sit on the task force. We have bylaws, monthly meetings. I would be happy to extend an invitation to any of the city council members that would like to participate in these monthly meetings. We would love to have more participation from you all so that you can learn more about what we've been working on and what we plan to do in the future.
Thank you. I want to just appreciate the hard work that the task force has done in working with, it seems like a well-rounded task force that has entities from every position that could be possibly affected by this. And it seems to me that after many years of looking into this and looking for the best option, it seems to me that upon the recommendation of the task force that a police officer would be the best option. And I think that does make sense to me. Plus with the fact that there is a grant covering a majority of the cost, I think that seems like a good deal for the city to save lives within the city.
Alderman Revelo?
Chief Woody, I just Googled, said in May 1st, 2015, and starting salary was about $50,000. So this grant is going to obviously cover the benefits as well. And also, I'm not sure on top of your head, just housing one person in the jail, I'm just lowballing it, $15,000. And what I heard earlier, there's about 60 or 70 in the Belvedere in the county of opioids. If you times that by $15,000, you're well over $1 million just housing those people in the house for 1 year. So I can see this outweigh the benefits of not only saving taxpayers money by not having one person housed in the jail, it's just a cost-effective saving lives and helping them not go back and fall into that drug pattern.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree in conversations that I've had with the sheriff regarding the cost of housing. I think your estimate may be a little conservative based off of the projections that Sheriff Ernest has shared with me. But then you have to take into consideration that's locally. Our tax dollars also pay for those that are admitted to the Department of Corrections as well, and that's even more expensively and burdensome to the taxpayer.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Stevens, please proceed.
Well, I keep hearing this is going to be free money. One of the costs we haven't been talking about is the increase to pension costs. What are we up to for fire and police, each around $1 million that we're putting into the budget each year?
Gosh, it's 2.7 million is what we're putting in.
Okay, 2.7 million, that's going to be an increase in costs. We're going to lose one of our current officers who's trained on the street immediately. Then it's going to take, almost a year to get a newly trained officer on the street patrolling?
That's possible. That's possible. I wouldn't categorize it as losing that veteran officer. I think a lot of our officers have talents that we utilize in a lot of different areas. And a majority of them are veteran officers because, to take a new officer and put them into a specialized position like this just simply wouldn't make sense. You're looking for somebody who is going to be able to navigate not only the police department, but the judicial system, have experience with social workers and the different departments within the city already. So it's one of those things you have to look at the value that we're getting from assigning an officer to this grant position, and then weigh that versus maybe we have to wait a little bit longer to get that officer to backfill the veteran officer. That is something that, you know, we have taken into consideration. We understand that is a possibility. But again, you know, when we look at the value that this officer is going to bring in this particular position, I think it outweighs, you know, any negative aspect that we may address here tonight.
But to take the current seasoned officer off the street, that's going to leave one of the shifts short. So during vacation season, there's going to be overtime for that possibly also.
No, not necessarily. We can accommodate for all of those scenarios. You know, we look at shift strength when, you know, assigning people to these different positions and specialties. These are all things and variables that we have control over.
And
Please,
also
Ms.
regarding the pensions, this person, the new hire, would not be vested if for some reason the program only lasts 3 years and this person needed to be let go. If they were, you know, not vested in another community, they would just remove the portion that they paid into the pension, and ours stays in the pension and comes off the books. So it's not hurting us if they're here for 3 years and then they leave.
Yeah, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how pensions work in this community, so it's good that you cleared that up. Thank you. Alderman Frank, please proceed.
Officer or Chief Woody and Becky, how many new officers are we looking to hire this year?
Right now, we have one position open, and that's Sergeant Staples, who retired in January. Currently.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion? Alderman Porter, please proceed.
I have one more question.
Just a minute, Alderman Freeman. Alderman Porter has a question. Alderman Porter, please proceed.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I had a statement here all filled out, but I guess I'm just going to summarize it and ask some questions. I guess I'm wondering why we can't just use the officers on the street to do these recommendations and these referrals. You know, when an officer has an encounter with somebody that's on drugs, why can't they directly, you know, make the referrals to the health department instead of, you know, hiring a specific officer? It seems like you should be able to give some general training to all the officers, you know, to do that type of thing.
Yeah, and generally, a lot of those officers do have that training, and that's what this particular officer that's going to be assigned to this position is going to rely on, is the feedback and referrals and recommendations from the officers that do encounter these individuals after hours. But it also helps to have a single point of contact to be able to take all of those other outside agencies and be able to direct them to that one particular officer. So we're able to centralize all that information, all of those resources, and, you know, because the officer working night shift isn't necessarily going to be available when the social worker or Rosecrans or the Behavioral Health Task Force or, you know, Amanda Mail may have questions about a particular client. Where this officer, and that's one of the reasons why we want them working the hours that we want them working, because that's going to be the normal hours that all of these other agencies are going to be working as well, and when the resources are going to be available so they can go ahead and direct these clients in the appropriate direction during the business hours that they can actually get the resources. And to address one question or comment, I had inferred, based off of something that Alderman Freeman had said pertaining to overtime and the potential for the community law enforcement officer coming in after hours, because that's when we're dealing with these people. That is not going to be the role of this officer. The role of this officer is, as I just explained, to come in the next day, look at those referrals, look at our calls for service, look at our blotters, which are our real brief narratives in our computer system, and then identify those potential clients and get them the services during business hours. Yeah, we would not be advocates for them coming in for overtime after hours. That is not the role of this particular officer.
Please continue, Alderman Porter.
Okay, I guess I have to echo what Clayton Stevens said here. I'm concerned about taking an officer, seasoned officer off the street when we have all these other problems that I think, I realize that the drug problem and the opioid problem is a big problem here, but we have some other issues that seem to be more pressing, like with all these recent shootings, like at Cherryville Mall and in the city of Rockford, and then now at the YMCA in town here. It seems like taking an experienced officer off the street is just going to make it less safe for the rest of the citizens here, and I'm concerned about that. And also, it seems like we really need to go to the root cause of the problem. I understand that the very root cause of this whole problem is the drugs coming across the borders into this country, but we can't do anything about that at the local level. But the other problem is the drug dealers. I think we should be concentrating on getting those guys off the streets, and that will make the opioid problem pretty much go away. I would think if you get the supply off the street, that should take care of that problem, and that's what we need the experienced officers out there for, is to be looking out for these people. And so I guess that's just my feeling on this. And also, I do feel that the, like drug interventions and mental health interventions should really be the job of the families of these people, and possibly the health department, but families, friends, and those kind of people are really the people that I think should be doing interventions for these type of things, not police officers.
Anybody want to respond to that? Alderman Freeman, did you have another question?
I did. This is for Amanda, if she's still with us. Tonight we're voting on a resolution for an intergovernmental agreement for a community law enforcement officer between the County of Boone, the City of Belvedere, and the Boone County Health Department. My question is, if this vote fails tonight, will you still be able to pursue the COSAP grant and use it either in conjunction with the Boone County Sheriff's Department, or more funding for Rosecrans outreach, or another full-time professional dedicated to the services that you're looking for down at the health department?
Amanda,
So I would just like to clear. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Please proceed, Amanda.
Okay. I would just like to clarify that this is a grant for the entire task force, which includes the city and the county. This is not a health department grant. Our department is committed to helping to administer the subcontracts and being one of the driving forces behind the task force. But a lot of the services that are needing to be provided in the community stretch well beyond the doors of the health department and the services that we currently provide or that we would be able to provide. So my hope is that you all will continue to join us on the journey towards moving forward with executing another $500,000 for our local community that has been approved and the conditions have been removed by the Department of Justice. They're very much backing what we're looking to do here at the local level. They've seen it work in other local communities, and they have already allocated us the funding for 3 years. If the City of Belvedere is not wanting to proceed in moving forward with this, then we'll go back to the task force and we'll take a look at the need and the gap that is still going to be there, right? And we'll have to figure out the best way to address that. I really believe, based on working with your police department and with Chief Woody and the rest of the task force, many of the city representatives have been sitting on the task force for the last 4 years, participated in the sequential intercept map model process and the gaps and needs analysis. They are the experts that are out there seeing what some of those needs are and what the gaps are. I trust the judgment of our local law enforcement in terms of where they best fit into this process. And I really think it's important to have our city of Belvedere participating and on board with the activities that we're hoping to achieve in terms of behavioral health outcomes for our entire population.
Thank you, Amanda. Ms. Freeman, anything else?
Yeah, no, so that answered my question. They still do get the grant money even if it doesn't go for an officer. Thank you, Amanda.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion on the floor? Alderman Frank,
Alderman
please proceed.
Brereton.
Alderman Brereton, Alderman Frank has the floor. We'll get to you in just a second, sir.
Okay, so some of this grant money will also go to the county, not just to the city, right?
Amanda?
That's correct.
Alderman Brereton, you have the floor.
Thank you. So just for clarification, what exactly are the costs incurred by the city that are not covered by this grant?
What I can tell you, Alderman Brereton, is I don't have that figure because the only thing that we've identified as a potential expenditure that isn't covered by the grant is the potential for overtime, which I know Amanda is working with the Department of Justice to try and get that revised and get that as a condition of the grant and covered as well. When Amanda and I discussed putting that language into the IGA, there was the possibility of, community engagements that might take place after hours. If we have, I guess where the CLEO and social workers have to meet with kids at the school, that might happen after hours. Things of that nature that is a possibility. This is something that we're trying to be completely transparent about and say that, we don't necessarily have those costs. The only thing that I can tell you, with any amount of certainty is that the police department will monitor that, as we have with DEA, with the SRO, with other, the community policing coordinator. We watch all of those things with the budget in mind. And I wouldn't anticipate that cost being very much. And in fact, I would consider it negligible going forward. I just can't tell you specifically because these are potential activities that could take place. We don't have anything on the schedule at this point because it would be putting the cart before the horse because at this point we don't have the personnel to attend any of these functions.
Chief Woody?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. It's a little hard over the phone. It's Amanda Maligan from the Health Department. May I just make a follow-up comment? Would that be appropriate?
Please.
Okay. I was going to answer the comment that was made right before this question was just asked that you answered. I wanted to address too, when I said go back to the drawing board with the task force, I want to clarify exactly what that would mean. So if we don't execute specifically a subcontract with the Belvedere Police Department, then I will go back to the Department of Justice through the task force and we will have to rewrite the grant. So they will put conditions back onto the grant. They will put the funding on hold and it will impact not only our planning period and the subsequent years that the grant is prepared to be executed for, but it will also directly impact the partnership that is being developed with Rosecrans and the subcontract that they are in the middle of working on. If conditions are placed back on the grant because the grant has to be put on hold because one of the subcontractors is choosing not to proceed, it does delay the entire process towards moving the executed grant forward, having a potentially challenging impact on the entire operation. So you all are a very critical piece of this puzzle and a critical piece of moving the entire grant forward. I want to make sure that that's really clear.
Ms. Tobin has a comment, and then Alderman Snow. Ms. Tobin, please proceed.
I just wanted to bring up as far as the salary and benefits went, we also were on the conservative side and assume that this new employee We'll have family coverage insurance, so we made sure to put family coverage, which obviously is our most expensive, into that budget. That person may not. That person might be single. That might be single coverage, which is substantially cheaper, or even single plus one, which is much cheaper than is what's in the grant.
Thank you. Alderman Snow?
I guess, as we look at this, barring the fact that we have a huge outpouring of community support from community leaders such as the sheriff, the district attorney's office, obviously the health department, the city administration, the police department itself, I don't see that there's a big downside to this. I mean, there's always questions about the cost of everything. Everything new is always going to have hiccups and concerns. But at this point, I can't imagine that if we don't try this, that we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And I think we should move forward with it and give it the attempt.
Any other questions or comments?
Alderman Burton?
Alderman Burton, please proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, back to my question about what this is going to cost. We don't have a definite figure on that. And I think I think we're going to move forward. So I would like to make a motion that any additional expenses not covered by this grant, that we make those expenses a 50-50 split with the county.
Well, I have a motion on the floor that any additional expenses beyond the coverage of the grant, that would be a cost that would be split with the county. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Frank. Questions or comments? The Attorney Drella, do you have something to say?
Yeah, briefly. The core of the discussion tonight is an intergovernmental agreement with Boone County. So obviously, if the motion passes, it would actually require then the Boone County Board to go back through their whole process, their committee process, assuming they agree to put those kinds of terms into the agreement. So I have to go back to square one with them and go through the whole process. So just to understand, it's not something we can do unilaterally. The county would have to agree to it and then go back through the entire agreement process on their end to see if there's a consensus.
So, in other words, this would be delaying this whole process again.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Alderman Frank?
When I asked questions before, they said they had till May to pass this grant. Is that correct? But you just wanted to start earlier so you could start training.
The position itself, as Amanda explained, actually doesn't start until June. But, in preparation for putting somebody into the grant position, we have to hire somebody, start training somebody. We have to, start the assignment process within the police department. All of that takes time. So, yeah, I mean, the more time that we are able to get, the better off we're going to be because, yeah, June is the deadline for the grant.
Additional questions or comments? I have Alderman Rivolo.
I'm assuming there's also a carrying cost because the person also has to go to court. So there's a lot of cost to one person put in house for jailing, court costs. It's just compounded costs that we're gonna save. Like there's no figures right now because I'm not a professional or percentage of this, but I can, with common sense, I know there's a lot of fees and court costs. And the families also, they might lose a car. How are they going to get there? It's a lot of factors we're missing out on this great opportunity to help the community.
Well, Mayor would like to make a comment after listening to everybody's comments so far. The chief has very explicitly said that with the projection that he has for his overtime budget, that will cover, he feels, any costs that have been not anticipated at this point. You cannot project costs on items that you do not know the cost of, period. And delaying this is not a good thing because we want to move along with this. We were fortunate enough to get this grant. We've looked at exhaustively how other communities across the country have had a grant like this and how it's helped the situation in their community. So, I think it only is common sense to pass this and get this moving along. So having said that, any other additional questions or comments on the amendment to split any future costs above and beyond what the grant covers with the county? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of this amendment to delay until the county can work this through their process will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Frank?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Nay.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Nay.
Snow?
No.
Stevens?
Yes.
Arivalo?
Nay.
Brereton?
Aye.
Flurry?
Nay.
5 in favor.
Well, that leaves it to the mayor, and I vote nay to the amendment, which brings us back to the vote on the actual resolution itself. All those in favor of approving the resolution will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Freeman?
Nay.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
No.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Stevens?
No.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
No.
Flurry?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
6 in favor.
Resolution 2021-3, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with Boone County for the provision of a community law enforcement officer pursuant to the COSAP grant is passed. Thank you all for your participation this evening. I'll give everybody a moment to reconnoiter and see if they'd like to join us for the rest of the meeting. Okay, we'll pick it up with item B, Ordinance 520H, a second reading, is an ordinance granting a special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment, video gaming within the general business district at 2001 North State Street. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Snow. May I have a second? Snow, second by Porter. Questions, comments, or further conversation concerning this? Alderman Snow.
So just for clarity, this is the Fast Mart over by, that's close to the post office, is that correct? Correct. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing, yes, Alderman Stevens.
Just to get ahead of this, I was going to ask that all of these ones that are asking for this, do they all have current liquor licenses?
He does.
We'll take them one by one in discussion. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
Aye.
Flurry?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
10 in favor.
Ordinance 520H is passed unanimously. Brings us to item C, Ordinance 521H, a second reading, another ordinance granting special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment, being video gaming, within the PB Plan Business District at 1052 Belvedere Road. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Arevalo. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second by Stevens. All those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is passed unanimously. Brings us to item D, ordinance 522H, a second reading, an ordinance granting a special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment, being video gaming, within the general business district at 2038 North State Street. I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Frank. May I have a second? Second by
that.
Arevalo. They do have their liquor license.
This one, Jamal does.
This is not Jamal. You have your liquor? Okay. Additional questions or comments? Alderman Snow?
Did we get clarity as to where this one's actually located?
It is the Belvedere Tobacco Liquor Store that is in the strip mall right next to Tom and Jerry's.
Thank you.
Alderman Frank, do you have a question?
Well, I was going to ask if they have city registration.
A business registration?
I would have to look that up.
That really isn't going to keep them from this passing, so that's a voluntary registration. That's a voluntary registration, as you recall. All those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved. Items E and F, I'm going to have addressed by the city attorney because there are some issues with these that he will clarify for us. Attorney Dreller, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item E is ordinance 523H, which is before you for a second reading. Again, this is another special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment, including video gaming, at this time at 171 South Appleton Road. For those of you that may not recall, that is the gas station at the corner of Newburgh and Newburgh Locust and Appleton Road. Attached to this one is a condition on the special use, which you do not always see. When the applicant applied for the special use for indoor commercial entertaining, it was identified that the current property, that is the gas station, does not have enough space on site for parking spaces to meet our zoning code. So one of the conditions on that special use is the applicant enter into a cross easement agreement with the old waterfall property to place 3 parking spaces on that site so that he'd have adequate parking. In fact, he actually owns that other site, so it's pretty easy to do. But we do require the perpetual cross easement agreement. That way, if he sells the property in the future, that easement is still in place. We finally got the signed document at about 1 minute to 7 this evening. I did review it. It is appropriate and is acceptable. He will need to record that tomorrow for the condition to be met. So with that easement in place, the recommendation from Planning and Zoning was to approve this case. And just so that the owner, Mr. Chaudhary, understands, if that's not recorded, then obviously the mayor won't sign the ordinance and he won't get a special use. But he's going to record that tomorrow and deliver it to our offices.
Alderman Snow?
And so this doesn't allow him to eventually move the video gaming over to the waterfall if he reopens that establishment. That would be a totally separate case altogether because that's a different address.
That is correct. In anticipation of Alderman Stevens' earlier question, I don't know if he actually issued this license yet, but he did apply for the license. It did pass the background check, and he's ready to go as far as the liquor license goes.
Mayor has a question. So this requires parking And so he's presented something that says he's a plan that he's gonna do the parking. Wouldn't he have to have the parking in place before we approve it?
We would not give him a machine license permit for his machines until the parking's in place.
Okay, just wanted to make it sure that we have a control. Alderman Snow?
And if I recall right, this particular location, didn't he have a liquor license at one point when it was 20,000, made the payment program and bailed out, and we gave him the waiver for the rest of the 10? So he's gonna be okay, or is he really not gonna be serving? I'm just curious.
So because of the size of the establishment, he is required to have a pour license from the state of Illinois. Of course, our local license already allows the pouring, which is why he has to get that special use that he's asking for. So yes, he has to have alcohol on the premises that he's available to pour. Whether or not anybody actually buys a drink there, you never know. I know one of the gas stations keeps a cooler with some beer up in it behind the counter, and they charge so much for their beer that nobody wants to buy it. But they are complying with the law that way. As far as the liquor, he did have an earlier liquor license at that establishment. He turned in voluntarily that liquor license many years ago. He is now paying another $10,000, so now it'll be a total of $30,000 in liquor license fees to have alcohol at this establishment.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
For
Motion
case-
by Snow, may I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Riblo. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of ordinance 523H, a second reading, will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Nay.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is passed, which brings us to ordinance 524H, second reading, which is an ordinance granting special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment video gaming within the neighborhood business district at 600 Logan. Similar issue here.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. You'll recall 600 Logan is the gas station on Logan Avenue, essentially across the street from, let's say, 7-Eleven. That's the one that we had quite some time ago issues with during the construction phase or reconstruction phase of the gas station. Again, same owner, same operator of the gas station, and exactly the same problem. He simply just doesn't have enough space on site to put the parking. He's attempting to negotiate a similar cross easement access agreement with adjacent property. His attorney called me about 4 o'clock this afternoon and asked if the council would consider tabling this matter to give him a chance to work out that cross easement access agreement so that he could then move forward with it. I see Mr. Chaudhari's finger going up.
Yes, Mr. Chaudhary.
I did talk to my neighbors and I already, he's preparing the contract. Whatever 196 feet from mine, from Logan, to going back all the way to the next house, I'm buying the property from
Well, when you get that done, come back and see us.
soon.
And I would point out that because of the parking issues and the inability to fix them at the time, unlike Elton Road, the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission was to deny the case and not approve indoor commercial entertainment there. But given the fact that he's trying to fix that problem that might sway this council at this point, I think a motion to table would be appropriate.
So moved.
Motion by Frank, second by Porter. All those in favor of tabling will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Nay.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion is passed.
Question, I do have a question, generic question when it comes to the parking thing. Is that contingent on the number of machines being maxed out at 6, or is it just the fact that they've got a machine bumps up the requirements?
You've opened a can of worms. The reality is, it has nothing to do with the number of machines. It has to do with a couple things. One is the size of the building, but also how it's laid out. And Jean can speak to that more carefully. But the reality is, because we don't know the actual layout yet, she calculated the number of spaces needed on the existing use. Both of those sites are actually non-conforming at this time. For the current use, he doesn't have enough parking spaces. So what we're actually recommending is simply bring it up to code for the current use, with the understanding that that may not meet all the requirements for indoor commercial entertainment, but it'll be close enough where there should not be issues. Correct me if I got any of that wrong, Gina.
No, you're correct. So for, so for the gas station, which is considered in-vehicle sales and service, it is 1 parking space per 300 square feet. So Appleton Road required 8 parking spaces and they had 5. Logan Avenue required 7 and they only had 5. For indoor commercial entertainment, which is video gaming and bars, taverns, pool halls, stuff like that, it is based on 1 per 3 seats or 1 per 3 people for total occupancy load, whichever is greater. However, occupancy load is all, if they build a half wall, the occupancy load is different. If they have tables versus bar tops, occupancy is a little different. You can't determine that unless you have a floor plan with the walls, and obviously that can change it. You know, anytime you remodel, your occupancy load's going to change. So that's very hard to determine. So what I did was based it on the gas station. If the current primary land use doesn't meet code, why add a secondary land use on top of it? And I want to add that secondary land use, the indoor commercial entertainment, would always factor in more parking spaces than in vehicle sales and service. Just the nature of the beast. When you go 1 per 3 people, you're going to do a lot more than 1 per 300 square feet. So instead of going for the upper one, that's hard to calculate, I went with the base zoning. So yes, until you can bring your current land use into compliance, why add additional land uses to it?
Alderman Snow.
Maybe Gina can answer this. So he's talking about purchasing the property behind the gas station. Is that even zoned correctly at this point? Or is that going to have to be more hurdles? There's a zoning map over there.
Purchasing it, I've heard purchasing it, I've heard cross-access easement. It depends on how it factors out. If it stays with the primary land use, then the parking lot's fine with the cross-access easement. If it becomes a standalone lot, then off-site parking, which is what it would ultimately be, would not be completely up of zoning, but you can do a simple lot combination or pave across the lot line, technically then combining the 2 lots. So there's ways around that so that it does comply with zoning. Then it all depends on how it's ultimately laid out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions before I sit down?
Okay. Yes, Alderman Porter.
This is not for Gina. This is just a general question here. I wanted to go back here, and one of the aldermen here, and I didn't catch who it was, mentioned the business registration license. And I think it is actually important that we make sure that these people have the business registration license, you know, when you make these decisions. And I wanted to ask and make sure I get a clarification, because Mr. Mayor, you said that the business registration license, you just made the comment that it's a voluntary license?
Well, in practice, it's required. I mean, in our code, it's required. In practice, what do you do to people when they don't have one? What would you suggest?
Well, my suggestion would probably, if we can't get away in compliance, you know, there are fines for that, but if we're not going to get compliance, I would say maybe repeal it, but that's a conversation for another day.
If you remember, I think you were on the council then when we first talked about this, and we had a whole lot of people who thought we were violating their rights and asking for information that they didn't want to give out and so forth and so on. So our practice has been, the real impetus for why we wanted a business registration was so we could rid the city of massage parlors. And that was very succinct in our conversation, and we did do that. So we haven't made a practice about giving people a lot of grief if they didn't. We've had people come in and voluntarily fill out those. We ask for that. But as far as punitive, we have not practiced punitive measures against people who do not have it. I believe that that was something that we wanted to discuss again with the council. Alderman or Attorney Drella. I'm tired, folks, excuse me.
So am I. With respect to the issue with, on these types of establishments, they do have a business license. They have to get a Belvedere liquor license, and it costs them $10,000 to get that license. The application is much more detailed than any business registration license we use. And has all the owner information, but on top of that, we're actually doing criminal background checks on the applicants. We know where they live. We have all their phone numbers and addresses, all those things that the business registration license is needed to get for the fire department, police department, what have you. And also, just like the business registration license, that license can be repealed or taken away by the city if they violate any of our city codes. So the reality is, should they have a business registration license? Our code says yes, but it's double dipping. They both do essentially the same thing for these establishments. So for purposes of your indoor commercial entertainment liquor license issues, I wouldn't worry too much about them not having a business registration license. Certainly we'll ask them for one, but that liquor license is actually much stronger than any business registration license we have.
And I just want to add, we do ask them to fill out the business registration license in the process of filling out the liquor application.
I guess that's what we usually do.
Okay, so moving on. Up next is Ordinance 525H, second reading, ordinance granting special use to allow indoor commercial entertainment video gaming within the general business district at 1474 North State Street. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Snow, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Rivolo. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion on the floor? Alderman Snow, please proceed.
So this is the Bravo Pizza location, is that correct?
Correct.
And at this point, they don't have a liquor license, do they?
No, part of it was they were hoping that video gaming would help offset the cost of liquor license, so I know she was applying. Oh, did it come through? Oh,
Yes,
sorry, it came through.
they were issued a,
I just signed it, so, yeah, they do. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Radcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved, ordinance is approved unanimously, which brings us to item H, ordinance 526H, a second reading, an ordinance amending Appendix A fees relating to frozen water meters of the city of Belvedere Municipal Code. Would you like to refresh us a little bit on this, please, Director Anderson?
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance basically establishes the costs to replace the new version iPro meters. As we talked previously, the new meter versions are all plastic. The older styles that we still have out there come with a freeze plate on the bottom. They're metal housing with a plastic freeze plate. So when a meter does freeze, then usually that plate breaks and you just have to replace that plate at a cost of the $50. However, when the iPro, the new meters, when they freeze, they just break and we have to replace the whole thing. So this is just establishes that cost.
Alderman Frank.
Brent, I have a question. So, do people call to ask you to replace these, or you just replace them when a need comes up? How does that work?
Yeah, this is on an as-needed basis, and typically what happens if if the heat's turned off or something happens. Texas was a good example of what can happen when temperatures go down and things freeze. Yeah, it's on a case-by-case basis as it happens.
Kind of got the cart before the horse here. I need a motion to approve. Motion by Fleury, and I have a second, please, by Frank. Now, additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor?
I have a question for Brent.
Please proceed, Alderman Freeman.
Thank you. So, Brent, this happens when somebody, the homeowner, allows their pipes to freeze by either turning off their heat or whatever. This is not anything that could potentially happen to a homeowner because of something the city does, right?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Alderman Snow?
And so these are the new meters. These are the ones that are tied into the radio transmission. And so when something does like this happens to it, you know, or you don't have a clue because it's not transmitting, or somebody has to flag it because it's not transmitting because it's now broke.
Well, yes, with the new meters, the iPro meters with the readers, it would show up on the continuous consumption report, but that continuous consumption report would only generate basically for the next day or the next several hours, so depending on when it would happen. So hopefully somebody would catch it early on so we don't have a flooded basement. But with the new technology, the latest technology that we do have, hopefully we keep those instances minimized as best we can.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Yes, Alderman Porter?
I guess this might be for Attorney Drella, but say we have a situation that's beyond a homeowner's control, like let's say they had in Texas, where all these frozen pipes and all that happens. Is there any type of a relief available for the resident if it's something that happens that's beyond his control, like a major power failure of whole, citywide?
The current ordinance as exists now simply provides if the meter breaks, now it's a freeze plate, they have to pay, I think it's $25, Brent, $50 to have that replaced. Obviously, if there was a citywide or a large area, a ward-wide, what have you, power outage, the council at that time could look at it, and just as you've done with people that come in where they have a broken valve or something like that and the water runs forever and you've reduced rates, you could do something similar at that point. So you do have the mechanism to do it on a case-by-case basis as needed if there's an emergency, but that would require council action.
I have one more question.
Alderman Freeman, please proceed.
So I think this is probably for Attorney Drella. Typically, I think this would only probably happen in a foreclosed home that had been abandoned and not winterized. So if in that case, then who is responsible for that? Would that be the bank that's foreclosed on the property that we would have to charge for this new meter?
I can't speak as to when it happens. I can imagine it happens with people that have their power or their gas turned off because of non-payment of utilities. I'm sure it happens in a lot of cases. In the specific case of the foreclosure, it depends on where you are at in the foreclosure process as to who would be responsible. If the bank is entitled to the property or in possession of the property, then yes, it would be the bank.
Okay, thank you.
And then I can add to that a little bit. We know, based on our readings and with the remote readings coming in, when there's zero consumptions. So we tend to check on those properties that have zero consumptions just to confirm what's going on. We've had a couple instances during this winter season where we've gone by those properties and noted that they're vacant and noticed that there's frost actually showing up on the windows. And at that point in time, we'll go ahead and shut the water off at the street to make sure the water's off. So we tried the best we can to minimize frozen meters if at all possible.
Thank you, Brent.
Any other questions concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Rivelo,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Ordinance 526H, second reading, is approved unanimously, which brings us to item I, Ordinance 527H, a second reading. It's an ordinance amending Section 114-303F, Maintenance and Repair of the City of Belvedere Municipal Code. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Snow. May I have a second? Second by Fleury. Questions or comments? Alderman Snow, please proceed.
So Brent, this is just clarifying for people that they're responsible for maintenance and upkeep from the sewer line, basically from the front edge of the sidewalk to the house, or is that correct?
Yeah, this takes care of Scribner's error, when it was last updated. There was some verbiage in there that was missing, so this just cleans that up, doesn't change anything.
All right, additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, the motion on the floor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe, Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Rivelo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion 527H, second reading, is approved unanimously. Under number 10, new business, what we're doing here is waiving a holding over so that we can approve this evening. Is that correct?
The council recall committee, an attorney that was representing Rockford Oil Company with respect to the Aldi site had asked the city council to consider the institutional control prohibiting groundwater wells within the area delineated on that map that was attached to that ordinance, and the committee was receptive to that. He also at that point indicated that time was of the essence. I'm not entirely sure why, but I believe it has something to do with trying to get a bond released by the EPA when they approve the no further remediation letter, and some tax consequences for his client. So he sent me a letter requesting that the city council waive the 2-week layover requirement and consider for second reading ordinance 528H tonight. So the first motion be a motion to waive referral of ordinance 528H to committee pursuant to section 288 of our municipal code, and that requires 7 aye votes to pass.
A motion by Snow. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second by Rubelo. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Rivelo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously, and this leads us then to item B, 528H, first and second reading, an ordinance prohibiting the use of groundwater as a potable water supply in the vicinity of 1001 North State Street of the city of Belvedere, Illinois. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Rubelo, second, please. By
I'll
Porter.
second that.
Third by Alderman Stevens. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Rivelo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Ordinance 528H, first and second reading, is approved unanimously. Thank you. This takes us to motions forward in Committee of the Whole, Public Safety, Finance, and Personnel of February 22nd, 2021. Motions of Finance and Personnel will be presented by Chairman Tom Ratcliffe. Chairman Ratcliffe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. A, motion to accept a $15,000 grant from the National League of Cities as a pass-through to Growth Dimensions.
We have a motion to approve, please.
I'd like to make the motion.
Motion by Riblo, second by Porter. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Yes, Alderman Frank.
The language here is a pass-through to Growth Dimensions. Does that mean that we did the grant for them and they're on the receiving end, or what does that mean by the pass-through?
They applied for the grant because of their status. It needs to come through the city. And so it's simply, well, we co-signed the agreement, so the money comes through the city directly to them. We have no liability or participation past that point. Additional questions or comments? Alderman Stevens.
Remind me, what is the grant for?
Go ahead.
This was for, in talking to Growth Dimensions, it's for a product called SourceLink that they're going to have on their website. It kind of puts all the pieces, if a developer was looking for a property, it gives them everything in one place. So it's some type of computer software that makes things easier on potential developers or businesses.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Arivalo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is passed unanimously, thank you, Chairman Ratcliffe, for presenting the motion. Next, under motions of Public Works, Chairman Marcia Freeman will present the motions. Chairman Freeman, you have the floor. Please proceed.
Thank you. B, motion to approve the IEPA loan offer and authorize the mayor to sign the loan agreement for wastewater project number L173623.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Well, first, I'll entertain a motion.
We don't need any.
Okay. Oh, that's right, this is out of committee. I just need discussion. Sorry, folks, I'm a little weary tonight.
I have a question.
Please proceed, Alderman Freeman. Go ahead.
Okay. So we already have a loan that we're paying on, and I believe that it was established. We have 10 plus years left to pay on it, and this is a 20-year loan. So I'm hoping we can get the first one paid off before we need another one. You don't expect within the next 10 years to have to do another loan, do you, Brent?
Well, I would say I would hope not. This is one of the last of the big ticket projects down there to rehabilitate the wastewater treatment plant from when it was last done back in 1985. So going forward, projection-wise, I do not foresee that. However, this is just for the, I'm speaking just strictly on the existing wastewater treatment plant itself. So yes, that would be my goal is we would certainly want to have the first loan paid off before we have another one. However, things come up, things would happen, but I do not foresee that happening.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Yes, Alderman Stevens.
Was this the one that was going to require us to up the rates for sewer, was it?
Yes, this loan requires a dedicated source of revenue to guarantee to the state paying it back. It does contemplate a rate increase. Projected rate increase would be anywhere from 19 cents to 24 cents per 100 cubic feet on the sewer side. However, that rate increase will need to be in place basically the final cost of the project will determine the actual rate increase needed. We've applied for a grant, $750,000 grant for this project, so hopefully we'll get that award, which will reduce that the loan amount down to closer to that 19-cent level as what the estimated costs. That rate increase would take effect once that project is completed. Project is scheduled to be completed fall of 2022, so that's when we'd be looking at. Prior to that, I'd be coming back to council with recommendations for the rate increase.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. Alderman Porter, please proceed.
Brent, would it be possible to postpone this decision until we find out for sure if we get that grant or not?
The loan offer was contingent in the base. I would say no, because then we'd have to basically start the clock all over again. We'd have to go back to the IEPA because they have limitations within theirs. If we don't accept it, then they move down to the next eligible entity on the list for loan funds. When we apply, you go on a list and you're ranked by need and importance, ranking of scoring of your project. As you know, we applied. We were hoping to get funds, this project done a year earlier, but they ran out of funds and we did not rank high enough. So when we came around for the new year, we finally qualified for this funding source. So I would say if you decide to not proceed, then we would probably lose out and we may fall back farther down on the project list.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
Aye.
Flurry?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
McGee?
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Ms. Freeman, item
C, motion to approve the invoice from the Rock River Watershed Group in the amount of $5,000 for our first payment for development of our nutrient assessment reduction plan. This work will be paid for from line item number 61-5-820-6195.
motion out of committee. Questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor?
I have a question for Brent.
Please proceed.
So Brent, this is our first payment for this development. How many, this is an annual, like membership, right? Dues that we pay. So how many, years are we gonna remain in this program at $5,000? Is this like forever? And will this amount decrease, increase, or just remain level for, ever?
Excellent questions. We met, since our last meeting, we met and received, opened up, reviewed our statements of interest qualifications from consultants that is going to help the Watershed Group prepare the NARP. We will have, in our next meeting, we will have the recommended consultant present to give the presentation about their proposal and to talk costs with what we were looking at dollar-wise financially to pay for that portion of the NARP. Long-range plans that require some monitoring, some river monitoring and so forth. So the bulk of the cost initially will be the NARP plan itself. So I'll have a handle on that. Right now, we're estimating budget-wise in next year's budget, I included $30,000 for the Watershed Group costs. I can foresee that being an annual cost, at least initially for the first 3 years, until the NARP has been approved by EPA, and then it's going to be just a matter of long-term basic operation and maintenance. Not sure what that number is going to look like at this point in time, but we'll hopefully have a better handle on that as the NARP plan itself unfolds. And this will be paid for. It's based on the amount of sanitary users for each one of the entities that's part of the Watershed Group.
Okay, thank you. And does this motion go hand in hand with the next motion with Baxter and Woodman?
No, it's completely separate.
Okay.
Alderman Frank, did you have a question?
Yeah. Brent, so if our first payment is $5,000, but you estimate next year to be $30,000, how does that come about?
Because again, it's going to depend on what the price tag for the engineering required to develop the NARP and what that estimated price tag is. And once we know what those costs are and other associated costs for the establishment of the watershed group and those ongoing costs, then we can take our total cost structure divided over the total number of users that each of the entities represent, and that will come up with basically a unit cost, and then that will be the basis to determine each entity's share of those costs.
Does that answer your question? Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Alderman Fleury?
So I think we talked about this before, but the idea of being part of the watershed group is ultimately to help reduce the cost of us overall. So although we're paying some in by teaming up with these other communities, overall it should reduce our overall costs.
Yes, as opposed to having to do all the work ourselves and each one reinventing the wheel, each one having to go through that same process by all the entities coming together. And that's what EPA is looking for anyway, is the watershed come with a consensus among the entire contributors to that watershed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, the motion now on the floor will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
Aye.
Fleury?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Item D, Alderman Freeman. Chairman Freeman.
Thank you. I think that I need Brent to maybe restate this motion to include what the project is.
This one's for the 2020 annual pre-treatment report. She's right.
So it would be motion to approve the work order from Baxter and Woodman in the amount of not to exceed $4,000 to complete the 2020 annual pretreatment program report. Then this work will be paid for from line item 61.5.820.6190.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments concerning the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Snow?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
Aye.
Fleury?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is passed unanimously. Chairman, you can present item E.
E, motion to approve the quote from Bonnell Industries to replace the hydraulic controls on truck number 2023 in the amount of $10,756. This work will be paid for from Street Department line item 01-5-310-6020 equipment repair.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Stevens?
Aye.
Arivalo?
Aye.
Brereton?
Aye.
Fleury?
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously, which brings us to the final motion of the evening. Chairman Freeman, you may now present item F.
F, Motion to approve a one-year extension of our intergovernmental agreement with the City of Rockford for our annual painted pavement marking program.
Motion out of committee. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Arvelo,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
10 in favor.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Chairman Freeman. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Fleury, second by Stevens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody a nay? Well, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. This was a very full meeting, full of a lot of good information. I appreciate your participation.